So, do you think it's ever in any situation justice to punish someone for a crime they did not commit?
For to punish someone for a crime they
For a
didn't
crime they
commit?
did not commit? Yeah.
Is it just? No, I guess not.
No. So, what would you say if I showed you some places where God did that in the Bible? Would that make him unjust?
I mean, you could try.
Okay. So, I'm starting in Deuteronomy 22. I'm going for verses 13 to, let me see, uh, 13 to
Is this just like
19.
the virgin thing?
Okay. So, with that being said, it's clearly implying that, well, would you agree that this evidence of her virginity would be the blood on the cloth?
I mean, sure.
Okay. So, it's implying that every woman bleeds every time they lose their virginity, right?
I mean, I don't think that that's the purpose of the law. No.
Okay. So, we both agreed on a definition of justice that basically entails treating people fairly and not punishing the innocent for things they didn't do or for crimes that they didn't commit. And so here's the problem. When I go to things like Deuteronomy 22 with the virginity law, the law says if a woman can't prove she was a virgin, she gets executed. But we know that's not an opinion, that not all women bleed. So this law would literally get innocent people killed if it was actually applied. I'm not talking about, I don't care if it was actually applied or not, it's in the text. So it's like if God created the human body, how does he get basic biology wrong? Now, to be fair though, to Eli, he said the purpose was to protect women from false accusations, and he said that it wasn't actually put into practice in reality. And I looked it up, and I found evidence that he's correct on that. That there isn't actually any evidence that this law was ever actually put into practice. However, a system that kills innocent people, how is that protection?
Yeah,
And
it's good, bro. I,
okay, even the part where innocent women will get stoned because not all women bleed the first time they lose their virginity, right?
nah, I don't. I don't know that, but um, like,
Yeah, it's only like a little less than half of all women actually bleed the first time they lose their virginity. So,
I mean,
according to
do
this
you know if
law,
that was the case back then?
of course,
What do
women's
you?
biology hasn't changed since when was like 2,000 years ago.
That's not true at all.
It hasn't changed that much for like
It's
the
changed a
virginity
lot.
to.
What are you talking about?
So I'll move on from that point. So would you say that chattel slavery is good or bad?
Amen.
Would I say that chattel slavery is good or bad?
Yeah.
American chattel slavery was awful. I
What
think
about the
the
slavery in the Bible?
I think it was a. I mean, I think it was permitted
Do you think it's good though?
in some cases. Like, yeah, I think it was better than the alternative.
Now notice the shift. I asked him directly, is slavery good? Because logically speaking, in the Bible, God is supposed to be perfectly moral and never changing. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So logically speaking, if he agrees with something back in the day, he should still agree with it today. So when I asked him, is it good? I meant in terms of like, is it something that we should be able to do in any time, in any time period and stuff like that? And notice the shift. I asked him, is it good? And his answer became, it's better than something worse. That wasn't my question. Something being less evil than something doesn't make it good. And to go on that, we back to our definition of justice. We agreed that part of the definition of justice is treating people fairly and equally. And the Bible literally says you can treat foreign slaves differently than Hebrew slaves. So it's not even just slavery, which is also wrong. Which why would a perfectly moral God like allow a system and put his divine stamp of approval on something like slavery when we know he knows it's bad because he personally violated Pharaoh's free will multiple times to pull the Israelites out of slavery. So we know he knows it's wrong, but he allows them to do it. but also it's a tiered system. It's a system of favoritism. He says, "These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, you may not rule over the other with harshness." Now, to be fair to him, though, ancient societies all had slavery, but that's my point. This looks exactly like a human law, not like it's coming from a perfectly moral, uh, all-loving God. Like, let me go to it. Leviticus 25:44 to 46. Okay, it says as for the male and female slaves who you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. So we see here that God is making a distinction. You can treat these foreigners this way. You can treat them harshly, but for your fellow Israelites, do not treat them harshly. So would you say that goes with the definition of justice, with treating people with fairness and equality?
No, so I don't know if you've read the rest of the Torah, but you can't treat any slave ruthlessly or anything like that.
You can. It says right here. It says,
No,
"As for your deeds, you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness." That's implying that you can treat one with harshness, but one not harsh. If I say, "Hey, you can treat my daughter with harshness, but you can't treat my son with." Oh, sorry, that was too little. I'm saying, uh, you can treat my daughter this way, but you cannot treat my son with harshness. That's naturally inherently implying that you
well, it
can treat
doesn't it
one
doesn't say
harshly.
you can treat one with harshness.
No, it implies that.
Well, no, it doesn't. And so, like in the context, it's talking about like the you may inherit them as a possession forever. This doesn't pass on to their sons in the verse that you're quoting here. But in regards to Israelite slaves, right after the seventh year, or in the seventh year, they are supposed to be freed. So in regards to the possession forever, it seems like that's what's going to be talking about in regards to rule over one another ruthlessly, or harshly, or whatever you said. It seems like it's going to be talking about possession in regards to how long you're able to have this, but this still doesn't pass down to the next generation in regards to their sons or whatever, at least in the verse in which you're quoting. But secondly, in regards to all the other verses where it's talking about slavery, it reminds Israel over and over and again how they're supposed to treat their slaves, and they were supposed to remember that they were once slaves, and the way in which you're supposed to treat the strangers, the way in which you were supposed to be treated, and things like that. So once again, the law, the Torah, isn't a prescribed code of laws. But it seems like this is just talking about how long you're going to possess someone.
No, it's not
I
doing
do
that at
fish.
all.
Okay.
Like,
How would you know?
would you consider, like, say for example, you were living during that time. Would you want to be owned as property and passed down to someone's children as property and never allowed to leave?
I don't want to work. That doesn't mean that I don't have to get a job.
Yeah.
Like,
That's not the same thing
No, I mean
at
if
all.
I need, or if I am in a position in which I become a slave, I'd rather be a slave of the Israelites than the other nation,
No,
man.
it's not. It's not in a position where you have a choice though. It's like if someone just like you're a foreigner. Let's say you're living in the Bible times. You go to a Hebrew village. You're a foreigner, and they just take you and they just say, "Here, you're
you
gonna do
can't
this work
kidnap
forever.
people.
You're gonna be my property."
You cannot
You can't
kidnap
kidnap
people.
Hebrews.
Yeah,
You can kidnap Hebrews.
no, you can't kidnap, you can't do that
You can absolutely kidnap people in the Bible with biblical permission.
with
You
biblical
just can't
for.
kidnap Hebrews.
No, bro.
Is that of your free will though, or are you only doing that because you have no choice?
No, you have a choice. You
You
still have a
don't.
choice. Yeah, you do. Just because you have bad, like quote unquote bad options, doesn't mean you don't have a choice. Like
Okay.
if somebody puts a gun to your head and says name 5 DDG songs or die, like you have a choice to attempt. Like you could try, bro. I'm not saying that your choices is like everything that you would want right now, but you still have a choice.
Mm. Okay, so in Numbers 31:17-18, it says, "Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man by sleeping with them. But all the young girls who have not known a man by sleeping with them, keep alive for yourselves." You think all those young girls wanted to be kept alive, quote unquote, for yourselves?
You think they wanted to be left in the desert? Like, what the freak? You think they're gonna
Who
leave a
said they
baby
had to be
safe
left in
in
the
the
desert?
freaking desert and die?
Well, hold on. Answer my question first. Do you think they wanted to be taken as for yourselves?
Yeah, that isn't. They're not talking about sex there, bro.
They are, but
No, that
could
okay.
you
Here,
answer my
prove
question
prove
though?
that it's talking about sex there.
Could you hold on? Could you answer my question first?
I mean, yeah, I would say yeah. Prove that they were talking about sex there.
Okay. So when we go to Deuteronomy 21,
No, right?
10-14.
No. In the Numbers verse that you just brought up, prove that it's talking about sex there when it says to keep them for yourselves. Where does it say that they had sex with these women? You gotta just show that.
Oh, the next point is: do you think it was just when God has David's 10 wives raped?
You
Right?
said
Can you show
what?
that?
And this is where the debate turned into word games. He keeps saying, where does it say exactly this when I bring up Numbers 31? Where does it say anything about sex? Where does it say anything about grape? Where does it say anything about blah, 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 blah? This is where we get into the word games. So, in the ancient world, when you conquered a city, you killed the men and you took the women. That's not up for debate. That's literally history. You can look it up right now. Any historian, any biblical scholar, anyone would agree with me. So when the Bible says, take the women for yourselves, and if you see a beautiful captive, you can take her, and when it says you may go into her, take her and go into her, it's not talking about dating. If she can, and plus, in these situations, it's in situations where there are power imbalances. It's where people's families and friends and whole people groups just got slaughtered. Like, obviously, that presents a situation where it's coercion. Because if she can't say no, then it's not marriage. If she just watched her family die and she's just been taken captive and she has no power, no freedom, and no way out, then you can call it whatever you want, but it's still coercion. And if it's coercion, then it's most likely, logically speaking, sex slavery. Like, it's not just an opinion. Historians say war captives were enslaved and sexually vulnerable. So saying just because it doesn't directly say sex slavery or anything about sex directly in this passage, it's just completely ignoring what's actually happening and you just straight up lying. Like, to be fair, he says it was meant to limit worse behavior, but why would an all powerful God need to manage evil when he can just forbid it? For example, he straight up says absolutely no shellfish, absolutely no mixed fabrics, absolutely no homosexuality, but he couldn't do that with slavery, sex slavery, or rape, or sorry, grape. And people love to say, well, he was just limiting it. He didn't want to violate their free will. Yeah, he violated Pharaoh's free will when he forced him to keep the Hebrews longer so he could show off his power when he freed the Hebrews from slavery. So he can just pull some type of miracle to make them release them. He could pull some type of miracle to where in Numbers 31, it's like these little virgin girls don't have to be sex slaves or slaves or have to be kept. God can just give them some shelter, make sure they eat just like he did for the Hebrews. Why isn't that an option? Why does it have to be either they die and they starve to death or sex slavery and stuff? What God, you're acting like God's not all powerful. But at the end of the day, this really comes down to one question. Are we judging this by what the text actually says and what it would actually do to people if it were actually practiced? Or are we just judging by what we're told to believe by it? Because if this exact system existed today, we wouldn't even debate it. We call it evil. You don't want to be a slave. You don't want to be a sex slave. You don't want to be raped. You don't want to be none of that. But when if a human were to do these things, you would instantly call it evil. If Allah were to do it, if Vishnu were to do it, if any other person of any other religion or faith were to do this, you would instantly call it evil. But all of a sudden, when the God of the Bible does it slash allows it, now all of a sudden it's, oh, well, he couldn't have any way, other way. He couldn't violate their free will. Well, it was a part of his bigger purpose. He just didn't want to violate their free will because he values free will. Like, come on, bro. But with all that being said, basically throughout this whole debate, I just feel like he was doing stupid stuff, like he was playing word games. Oh, it doesn't specifically say grape and sex and stuff like this, so therefore it doesn't mean that he was playing word games. He was just like constantly shifting the framework. Like I keep asking him, "Is this good?" He keeps switching to, "Well, it's better than this." So blah 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 blah. Like it was like talking to a brick wall. And then the stupidest thing he said in this was just because the two choices are bad doesn't mean you don't have a choice. You do have a choice. Like, come on. So if I take, I think he has a wife. He said, I think he has a wife. So if I were to take your wife and I were to tell her, hey, I really like you. I want to be with you. I want you to be with me instead of Eli. I'm gonna give you a choice. You can either cheat on Eli with me and go on a date with me and let me go into you, as the Bible would say, and then we can live happily ever after, or I can take you to my basement and light you on fire. Is that a choice? Like, no, that's just coercion. Like, stop trying to make it seem like something it is. Like, it isn't. Like, it was just stupid stuff like that. Like, it was just so very idiotic. Uh, I just felt like I had to explain it though, like, because when I was up on there on the stage, it was live, and I don't have all the pertinent, cultural stuff, so I had to research this stuff after the fact. So I just wanted to let my point be known, like, no, I'm not just bringing this out of nowhere. I knew all this stuff beforehand, but I just didn't have all the sources and stuff to back it up like live. So that's basically what I just wanted to do. I hope this clears up anything, you know, that the God of the Bible isn't evil and stuff like that, and that he doesn't allow sex slavery or slavery, and it's only indentured servitude. Nope, not true. None of that's true. So I'll see y'all though.